Well, I spent the week talking to people around the Bay at hustings and so on, so it's nice to actually come and talk to people who may be already on something of the same wavelength that I'm already on. But what I want to talk about today, and incidentally discuss some of the issues which you won't hear talked about at all during the election campaign if you watch TV, because they don't like to talk about it. So I'm going to raise some of those issues this morning with you, but it's going to be under the generic sort of title of what it might be like, or what it would be like, to live in the Bay with a Torbay mare. So if you're ready for that, hopefully we can get going. Because along the way, I'll be referring to my blueprint for a better Bay, which is my manifesto, which is freely available online for downloading or reading from my website. And in fact, it's the most comprehensive offer ever made to the Bay electorate by the mayoral candidate. When I say comprehensive, it's comprehensive because it's not slogans, it's not fantasies about what we might be able to deliver. It actually shows you the why, the how, and the where, and how we will actually deliver, or why we'll actually deliver each of the pledges and promises which are in here. And before we go any further, so we can just push funding to one side. It's been carefully worked out, but it will be cost neutral or cost debate, nothing at all for all of the things that are in the blueprint on top of the existing council tax. So in fact, I'll be able to continue my policy of trying to keep council tax down to zero. We've had 4 years of that. I've been a strong advocate of that, and the reason that I've been a strong advocate of that is because that's the one thing we as a local authority can do, is actually keep your bills down. And we can do that for everybody, and there's a very, very sound reason for doing that. Okay, so what would it be like under a UKIP mayor here in Bay? Well, it'll be pretty good actually. It'll be good if you, and you'll get my unlimited support incidentally, if you're on fixed incomes. If you're trying to bring up a young family and working hard to try and do that. If you're low paid. If you're lonely and elderly. If you're unemployed and really need training. It'll be a good time for you, I would suggest. But it'll not be quite so good for you. Perhaps I won't be the sort of mayor. They'll be interested in the work shy, the shiftless, the drug dealers, the wife beaters, the criminals, the exploiters of our children. That won't be quite so good for you under my mayoralty. So, what are my pledges that I've got in here? We can talk about some of those things. If you actually are in the Bay, how many people are actually living in the Bay at the moment? Okay, well if you follow the local newspapers, to an extent they've reported the fact that I've been championing, for example, just recently, the fact that we need to do something positive to cut down the amount of violence, casual violence and brutality against women in particular, because the Bay statistics are horrific. They're worse than the centre of Plymouth for crimes of violence. So I'm talking about that kind of stuff. I'm the only council that's raised that. I talked about it at the recent hustings of the Herald Express at the Princess Theatre. It actually drew laughter, would you believe? And this is the kind of stuff that we're up against, the ingrained. You know, so it's somehow funny to beat your wife or your partner or whatever. I mean, this is extraordinary. I find it absolutely extraordinary. This casual brutality. Anyway, that's one thing. So I would be pledging to change that. One of the ways that we can do that, I believe, is by actually attacking the self-image of the men, and they're not just young men. I'm talking about men in the middle ages as well, and even as old as 80. Would you believe? There was one multiple rapist here in the Bay who was 80. Can you believe this? But anyway, the way that we can deal with this is to actually attack their self-esteem. You know, actually say in posters, in public campaigns, we can actually say, look, you know, you're not a man. You know, you're when I was brought up, you were the lowest of the low if you did with women. But then there we are. There's all sorts of positive stuff we can do to actually change things and bring those kind of figures down and shine a spotlight on it and make Torbay, if you like, some sort of exemplar for the way that we handle this. I know that Bristol's got an excellent scheme up and running at the moment, a fantastic website which finds campaigns on behalf specifically of women. And one of the biggest problems I had in getting my motions introduced into the council here and so on is this political correctness of trying to turn everything into a universal issue. So people would keep saying to me, oh yes, but men suffer from domestic violence too. Men suffer from sexual assaults and so on. And I say, yes they do, and they have my sympathy, and I would support them. But let's focus on the big issue. Let's not ameliorate it. Let's not water down the issue. Let's be quite clear. It is women that are bearing the brunt of this casual brutality in our society. So that's where I come from on that. Picking up another issue of mine, for example, because I'm desperately sorry for people who come to see me as a counsellor, because I'm a counsellor for Ellicombe Ward at the moment, who come to say that they're, for example, involuntary tranquiliser addicts. These are largely women, and they may have been on tranquilisers prescribed by their doctors for decades. Once they're on tranquilisers, it's very, very difficult for them to come off it. Children on Ritalin, boys, the numbers of boys on Ritalin. I've tried to raise the issue. I've tried to find out the numbers of children, because I know it's going up exponentially according to UK figures, but I've tried to actually find out what they are here in the Bay, and they will not tell me. They say, doctor knows best, we're not going to tell you how many. Well, actually, as Mayor, I would be demanded to know how many, because it doesn't actually have an impact on the individual. There may well be reasons individually why some children are on Ritalin, but I suspect that it's a default mechanism rather than actually looking at the issue itself. Similarly, with Prozac. Well, while Ritalin is the drug of choice for young boys and young men, Prozac is the drug of choice for, I contend, for young children, female children, young women and so on. Children as young as 5 can be prescribed Prozac. Now, I don't know how many of you know about Prozac, but it is a strong drug which can actually. I had a guy come in and see me in the week who said that he was on fluoxetine, which is the other term for what is commonly known as Prozac, and he said that when he was taking it, he was zoned out, to use his phrase. Now, imagine zoning out a 5-year-old child. What is going on? But these are the kind of issues. These are the kind of issues that I will be insisting that we investigate and we get to the bottom of, and that we do everything we can for. On the other hand, of course, there are drug replacement therapies that we pay £2 million a year just in the methadone bill for the Bay. Why? If we want to help people who are on drugs, we must be there to help the people who really want the help, the people who are trying to abstain, the people who are working and using partners, partner ex-addicts and so on to get out. I spoke to a lady who was a drug addict who had been at Shrublands, which is the local drug therapy replacement centre here in the Bay, for 4 years and had failed to come off heroin. 4 years. And she said she got to the end of her tether and she came out and she spoke to one of her friends and said, I don't think I'll ever get off this. My life is over. And her friend said, well, have you actually tried going to another organisation called Jatis? Have you? And there's other organisations like the Trip, we call it here in the Bay, where you can go and you can buddy up with somebody who's actually gone through this and has come off drugs. And she said, within 3 months, she was clean, she was off drugs. So she'd been on methadone for 4 years. Now, if you actually look at the government, there was actually a report by the, I think it was Public Studies think tank. I'm struggling to remember offhand. But anyway, there's a doctor called Cathy Gingell, who you may have heard of. She does fantastic work. She actually was commissioned to carry out a report and delivered it in June 2011. For the new government, coalition government as it came in. And she described just how bad the system had become because effectively GPs were being used as government's drug pushers. It was her contention. And what she was saying was, we need to move away from that and towards supporting people who want to come off drugs, because it's appalling. It's bad enough that there's guys out there selling it, without it being pushed by the government too. So there's a lot to look around. She particularly talked about methadone because she said actually methadone is used as a supplement by most addicts. It's not actually used as replacement. They go on taking cocaine, smack cocaine, and so on. They don't actually replace what we're doing. In fact, it's not even the right, they're not even the right substitute for those kind of things. It's only really heroin that it might be able to help you with. So there are all sorts of things, all sorts of abuses going on, I would say, out there. So I'm going to be on the case of all those issues. And when we come to cutting our budgets, yes, I might well be cutting something which is a sacred cow at the moment. That's the methadone budget, because we've all got to tighten our belts, and that includes that particular sector too. I actually got into trouble. I got dragged before the Standards Board for raising this stuff as a councillor. You'll be unsurprised to know a couple of years ago. And in fact, the Standards Board found in my favour. They said that I hadn't actually done anything wrong by raising this. It's a perfectly legitimate debate that's going on nationally, particularly with the medical profession as well. So, there we are. Children living in poverty, 7,000 of them here in the Bay. 7,000 children living in poverty. Why are they living in poverty? Well, perhaps it's 0 hours contracts. Perhaps it's straightforward low pay that's having to be topped up. That our current mayor was trumpeting the arrival of new jobs, 100 new jobs on the Barbican Road just before Christmas. He was busy talking about the fact that there was a new shop up there that you could all go and, irrespective of the impact that might have on the centre of the town, but never mind, you could all go and shop up on the Barbican Road. 100 new jobs. But most of those jobs are 20 hours a week jobs. Most of those jobs, aren't paying a living wage, aren't paying even, enough to support somebody or their family without top-ups on income support. Not any income support. So if you took just those jobs up to £2,000 a year, which I think is the maximum you can get on income support. I think 1,900, something like that. So even if you took that and said, well, there we are. There's quickly doing maths. There's a quick £200,000 that those jobs are actually costing us as taxpayers, and these people aren't even getting something that they can live on. And if you add to that the fact that they're going to be still having to get their housing benefit, they're still getting their council tax relief and so on. Suddenly you find that actually the profits that company is taking away to Ireland are coming straight out of your pockets. What we've got to get here in the Bay are the kind of jobs that actually sustain families, sustain people week in, week out. So let's think about what they might be. Well, there's lots of companies and there's lots of government organisations, there's lots of professional institutions looking to cut their bills, cut their annual overheads by moving around the country. It's going on everywhere. Well, now we've got the link road. It's going to be in there from December. It's going to be up and running. The last excuse for not providing those kind of decent, sustainable jobs, that kind of regeneration, which for years has been the default argument of local politicians. I don't know. You've all heard it, haven't you? Well, of course we could improve things now if only we had the link road. Well, now you're going to have the link road, so the next mayor, I would suggest, will have no excuses whatsoever for not drawing in those kinds of supporting jobs. People who need training, people who are unemployed now, want to work, need training. Within the Blueprint for a Better Bay, I talk about a new scheme which is backed by local industry, local businesses and so on. I've actually looked at schemes that have been run successfully in Oregon in the United States. I've looked at schemes that have been run successfully in Texas. Texas, incidentally, an interesting fact for those of you who don't follow American politics very closely, Texas has actually been creating over the past few years more jobs in Texas than the whole of the rest of the United States put together. An extraordinary achievement, and one that we don't hear anything about, of course, because we're also Eurocentric, that we were only told what's going on in the other European countries. We're becoming as bad as America. I mean, everyone says, oh yes, America, they're very insular, they only look in what's going on in America, they don't look outside. Well, we're becoming that just here in Europe, I would suggest. Oregon, Portland, Oregon, 70% of what they call dislocated workers, 70%. And dislocated workers, to use their language, to use our language, is in fact long-term unemployed. People who, for example, worked in industries that are now no longer around, and so on. They have got them back into work. And this is largely by the work of local industry, working with local government, working with obviously their federal government ultimately, because they've lobbied successfully to get funds to do it, actually working to get those jobs in Portland and other places in Oregon. So this can be achieved, and I believe, we can achieve it. The reason why I think I might be able to help particularly, of course, is because I've got a background as a parliamentary lobbyist in the construction industry. I've actually done it. I've actually lobbied Parliament for a living, so I know we can do this. I really do know we can do this. And you know, Exeter, how did Exeter get the Met Office? I don't know. They must have made a good bid because it certainly helped their economy locally. what we can do, look out the window. You know, the local authority, the council that I've been in the Bay, has been very successful in recruiting, for example, social workers. And why we've been successful in recruiting social workers to help with children and so on in particular, is because we have said, look out there, look what you're coming down to. You know, it's not difficult to sell it. You know, it really isn't difficult. And if we can provide the training and the backup, and so I've given specific proposals, I've not said, oh yeah, we need to provide training. I've said how we can provide training, how we can partner with firms that are already here to actually upskill using their resources. Their contribution is to provide their resources, whether they're offices or advice or whatever it is, to upskill the workforce here so that we're ready to receive those new companies that are coming down here. So it's practical advice. And of course, you know, nobody particularly wants to talk about this sort of stuff because it's the doing. You know, it's all very well a slogan. We're going to have, you know, you'll hear the Labour Party, you'll hear other parties going about, oh yeah, well, we aspire to do this, or we aspire to do that. Actually, in tune with the rest of UKIP, what I'm saying is, this is how we do it. Okay? So I'm actually providing the answers, not just slogans. Okay. Children in poverty, I touched on it, but of course, you know, the way that we pull children out of poverty is we pull their parents out of poverty, and we pull their parents and their carers and so on out of poverty and help them fundamentally. But my manifesto is about how we can deliver better lives for everybody here. So, for example, there's a pledge in there to increase just basic stuff. Like how many taxis are there out there that can be used by disabled people? Not many. Our record is awful. I think it's less than 7% can actually be accessed by people with disabilities. So I'm saying, no, let's double that at least in the next few years. Let's go on and drive it up so that we're actually one of the best. So it's about involvement. Another thing that I touched on earlier, elderly people. The biggest killer of elderly people is loneliness. You know, it's terrible. You know, people that have nobody to talk to. One of the things that I'm saying is let's reopen the day centres. We haven't got money to reopen the day centres as a council. But if the mayor says let's reopen the day centres and goes and asks for sponsors, Costa Coffee, whoever it may be, you know, saying, you know, please come and help us to open this and thereby save the lives of people in the bank. Of course they're going to join in because you lobby on the right basis with the companies, you strike the right chord with them, and yes, of course, they'll want to join in, because I've real experience of doing this in the construction industry. So there we are. Finally, I'll mention people who live in private rented accommodation. Affordable housing's come back onto the menu this time because the Conservatives are saying, oh yes, you know, great scheme we've come up with. We're going to sell all the affordable housing that build housing associations got. Fantastic. Yeah, this will solve the problem, won't it? No, I don't think so. I think what it will do is create even less affordable housing. You know, there are I think there were 5 last time I looked at it. 5 different definitions that the council are using as to what an affordable home is. To me, there's only one criteria is affordable, and that is, can you pay for it from within housing benefits? Whether you're drawing housing benefit or not, can you afford to pay for it within housing benefit? That is affordable housing to me. Now, how can selling off the properties of the housing association, so Sanctuary and West Country Housing here, actually help to sustain affordable homes? If you look at their basis for expansion and development, their basis for expansion and development is their property portfolio. It's what they borrow their money against. You know, how on earth are they going to be able to do that with a reducing estate? It's just ludicrous. You know. So I mean, you don't even have to think to the second level on this kind of stuff to understand that it's nonsense. So there we are. So I'll be fighting that, and I'm talking to housing associations next week as part of my Mayoral campaign to talk to the residents there and so on, and try and calm some of the fears that are starting to develop there, because they are terrified of what's going to happen to their homes if the Conservatives win the next election. Now, I don't care who wins the next election, just some final stuff, apart from here in the Bay, of course, because we want to be UKIP, in the Bay, and I'm sure that the returns that I'm getting on my campaign, the numbers are looking pretty good, I have to say. If you look at the last YouGov snapshot last week, you will see that UKIP is projected to get as high as 26.9%. That's just on current figures of the vote. So, if we achieve the most we can get, the other parties don't achieve the most they can get, we could actually win across the board here. So we've got to keep that kind of pressure on. Now, so when it comes to who wins the next election, actually I don't care, because if we actually mean that Ed Miliband gets into power, actually, isn't that what David Cameron deserves? Frankly, David Cameron, who dare not debate Nigel Farage in a debate, and something that actually, if you think about it, many people don't want to debate at parliamentary level here. Tony has been saying to me, why aren't there more hustings for parliamentary candidates? It's all about the mayor here. Well, I of course argue that the mayor is a very, very important part of the, in many ways, a day-to-day life is going to have more effect on people's lives. But nevertheless, yes, why don't they want to debate? I suggest it's because they don't like. Somebody said to me once, I said, last campaign I did stand for UKIP as parliamentary candidate, and I said, why doesn't Adrian come to some of these things? Well, he doesn't like debating. What kind of politicians are these? Your only reason to be a politician is to debate and to drive through and to change society for what you think would be the better for everybody. That's why I'm standing for mayor. I'm not standing for mayor because I think it'd be quite nice, or because if I were mayor, we might be able to stop the development on Carey Green. Of course, I would stop the development of Carey Green, but that's not why I'm standing for mayor. I'm standing for mayor because I want to change the way the Bay operates, change the way it looks, change the opportunities for everybody who's living and working and visiting the Bay. That's why I'm standing, and I do hope that when the time comes, you'll vote for me. Thank you very much.
Julien,
Yes, of course, yes, I'm here for questions.
You mentioned Adrian Sanders and also the link road. Now he's claiming that he actually did that. Could you just shed some light on that misconception?
Yes, well, of course it's a misconception. Of course, it's a happy accident that it's happened while he's MP, but then it's taken long enough then, hasn't it? How long has it been MP? 16 years. Well, anyway, let's not go down that way. I remember my parents sitting around the table when I was a young lad, just started Alderley Park School here, saying, "Isn't it going to be great when we get the link road?" So this is we're now going back to the early 1970s, and we're finally over the line there. But my greatest celebration is what I said earlier. Let's face it. I would actually say that the biggest contribution. I'm loath to say this, but the biggest contribution to getting the link road here was a certain Nick Bye. Now his name is mud here in the Bay now, and it shows you what some people will say what poison chalice being mayor is. And I think it's a poison chalice only if you separate yourself from people. If you try and create an ivory tower in the town hall where you make the decisions, you will fail. The only way you can deliver a successful mayoralty is to show how close you are. Think about New York, think about London, think about Middlesbrough for that matter. All successful mayoralties, and why is that? It's because there's been no distance between the mayor and the people. If you look at what Boris Johnson did, and these are things that you can actually say this is what a mayor should be doing. Boris Johnson, when he was first elected mayor of London, he wasn't happy with the way the Metropolitan Police were performing. He had no powers whatsoever as mayor to do anything about it. The mayor has no powers to get rid of a police commissioner, absolutely none at all. So what did he do? He went straight out, he went to the media, and he says, I've got no confidence in the commissioner. That's it. He had to go. People of London, this is their representative. If he's got no confidence in the chief police officer of the area, then, you know, forget it, he had to go. And similarly, I was asked about this, how this might work down here. And I used the example of legal highs. Legal highs for months, for years, people have been going about how awful they are. In fact, a young Italian language student died from taking a legal high here in the Bay. And her poor father was absolutely distraught. He was terrible. So we raised the issue in council, and the mayor said, well, we must wait and see what central government decide on this. You know. And I say, well, if you're going to be mayor, speak up for the people. Yeah, so I would go there, and in fact I will do this, if I make mayor, here's another pledge, I will do this, I will go out and I will make a public statement that now that we've got a new mayor, we are not actually happy. We're not happy. We don't want legal highs being sold in the Bay. We don't like you. We think you should go away. We understand that we've got no legal powers to get rid of you, but just you wait until we have got legal powers, you'll be gone as quickly as possible. Now, if you make that kind of powerful statement as the people's mayor, the people's representative here in the Bay, then I think you're doing your job as the mayor. You're representing their views. Finishing on the issue of the legal, isn't it fantastic? My greatest celebration is the fact that now local politicians have no excuses. And I'm more than happy to stand for mayor on that basis of no excuses.
Julien.
Yes.
There's a maxim in life that says you cannot serve two masters.
Right.
You can't do it, I can't do it. And neither can Torbay. You tell me, Torbay primarily for the retirement sector or tourism sector?
I think two masters. Well, there is only one master. Your T-shirt says what the master is. The master is the people, whether they're elderly people, whether they're young people, whether they're visitors, whether they're people who stay here. We are here, and the mayor is certainly here, to actually to deliver for them. You know, they have, so no, it's not a question of serving two masters in that sense. If I was saying that I'm also serving the European Union, then I would be serving two masters. I would be serving the people of the Bay and serving some people, some grey individuals over there who are unaccountable to the people and so on. But my point is that as Mayor of Torbay, I will be accountable, I will be out there, accountable to people. I won't be in an ivory tower in the town hall. I'll be speaking to groups like this, speaking to groups like the hustings that I've been speaking to groups like the people who are worried about their housing because they belong to housing associations and what the Conservatives have said that's threatening their future. I'll be out there talking to all these people. I'll be out talking to elderly people who are feeling lonely and need some support. I'll be out there talking to all those people because that is the only way that a mayoralty can be successful. For example, I'll give you a really good example. We're going to have to make up to £15 million worth of cuts next year in budgets for the Bay. The only way that we can make those decisions is with your support. Now, when I say your support, I won't please everybody all the time. What I will know is that I've explained thoroughly and completely why I've taken those decisions, how those decisions are the fairest I can possibly make in view of the needs of all the people in the Bay. So, for example, if I decide on the basis of consultation that I'm going to develop something in Torquay, for whatever reason, I'm going to have to go out to people in Brixham and Paynton and say, the reason I've decided to go forward with this project and not this project in Brixham and Torquay is this. So at least people, even if they don't agree, they will understand why I'm doing it. And so in that way, I'll be serving one master. Your T-shirt sums it up.